Hello and welcome. Good to see you all. Today we're talking about perfect pitch, absolute pitch, intonation, and specifically we're answering the question: what is perfect pitch? How do you know if you have perfect pitch? Is it important to have perfect pitch in order to be a good singer or musician? And how to develop good what's called relative pitch, which is something that everybody can develop regardless of whether you were born with this thing called perfect or absolute pitch or not. Um, so, if you're new here, just know that the last 15 minutes are set aside for Q&A. You're welcome to ask questions as we go in the chat, and I encourage that. Just know that the last 15 minutes are just for you in case we don't get to something that you're asking. All right, so a few definitions to get straight in our heads. The difference between good intonation, absolute pitch, perfect pitch, and relative pitch. First, we should probably define what pitch is. So, pitch is just the highness or the lowness of a note. A note technically has both pitch and rhythm. So, pitch is how high or low a note is, rhythm is how long you're holding that note for. So, usually we identify pitch by its scientific pitch notation. For example, this pitch right here we call C4. You could also identify a pitch by its frequency. So, this pitch right here is an important one for musicians to know. That you could call A4, that's its scientific pitch notation, or you might have heard it called A440 because the frequency of that pitch is 440 hertz. Okay, if you're like, what? I'm bored. Don't worry about it. We're moving on. Just know that pitch is the highness or lowness of a note. So, first definition to understand: what is intonation? Intonation is the ability to sing or play what we call in tune, meaning whatever I'm intending to sing or play, I really am singing or playing that. I can't demonstrate playing out of tune on a piano because the piano in front of me is a keyboard, meaning it's basically a computer. If I hit C4, C4 is going to sound. But as a singer, I'm imperfect. If I intend to sing C4, sometimes I can sing in tune. But let's say I don't have a good sense of pitch or I'm a beginning singer. Maybe I intend to sing that pitch. And I am not quite getting it. What I just demonstrated was me being flat or lower than the desired pitch. Similarly, I could be too high, I could be sharp. Okay, so both of those two examples would be examples of poor intonation. Good intonation, that occurs when I'm singing the pitch I actually intend to sing. A keyboard is a bad example, but lots of other instruments also can be played in tune and out of tune. For example, if you're a violinist, if your finger is just a little bit too high or a little bit too low on the fingerboard, you might be playing a little bit sharp or a little bit flat. Um, Same thing for wind instruments. If your embouchure isn't quite right, if the speed of your air isn't quite right for the pitch that you're intending to play, you can be playing out of tune or with poor intonation. So, intonation, singing or playing in tune if we're talking about good intonation. um, Absolute pitch. Absolute pitch is the ability to identify a pitch by its letter name without any reference. So here's the example. If I play a random pitch on the keyboard, if I sing a random pitch, let's say this one, if you're a person with absolute pitch, you would be able to identify that right away. That's a G. Or you could even get more specific and say that's G3. Again, that's the pitch letter name and the octave number. And if you would like an explanation of that, if you haven't been around for these lessons, I can give you a quick explanation of that. And hello, those of you who are joining live, thank you so much for being here. I'm just going to assume some of you maybe haven't been around for all these lessons. So I'm going to quickly explain that difference between pitch, letter name, and octave number for you because it'll come up again. So in the chat there, I just posted virtualpiano.net. Click that, open it up in a new tab. There might be a little pop-up you need to just close right away. And then I want you to click Key Assist and turn note labels on. The default is that they're off. So turn them on, and now you will have a keyboard in front of you. So now you can actually see some of the pitches that I've played so far. I played C4. Can you find that? And if you click it, it's going to sound like this. That's C4. I also played A4 or A440 earlier. You might just need to make the window bigger. So if your window is very small, it's probably zoomed into a small section of the keyboard. But if you're able to make that window bigger, then you'll be able to move around a little bit more. And then that final pitch that I just played as an example was G3. Okay, so just notice, we won't spend too much time on this, but just notice that those letters repeat. That's because the musical alphabet repeats. The musical alphabet goes from A to G and then it starts over again. So you'll notice if you find any A, if you walk up higher on the keyboard or to the right, you're walking through the alphabet or forward through the alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And if you were to walk to the left, down, lower on the keyboard, G, F, E, D, C, B, A. That's very difficult to count, say the alphabet backwards. But then you also have those numbers. And I'm going to demonstrate for you what that sounds like when I play, for example, A4 and now A3. If I play them together, it's almost like those pitches disappear into one another. Those pitches, anytime you're playing, let's say, an A and an A, a D and a D with a different octave number, those are usually going to be an octave apart. They could be more than one octave apart. If I played, for example, D3 and D5, let me play them together. So those pitches are 2 octaves apart. And if you do a little bit of counting, it becomes clear why octave 8, D walking up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. We could get more into that, but we won't today. All I wanted to show you was pitch letter names, octave numbers, and going back to our definitions. Absolute pitch, that's the ability to identify without any pitch reference a random pitch. So it doesn't really count now that I've been playing all these pitches and identifying them for you. You would have to get somebody, fresh. You would need to play something randomly and then see, can they identify what that pitch is. Okay, perfect pitch. And these are sometimes used interchangeably. I'm guilty of this as well. Perfect pitch is the ability to sing or reproduce any pitch. So that would be doing the opposite. If I told you, hey, can you sing for me A4 or play for me? See, playing is a bad example because you can know how to play something on on your instrument without having perfect pitch. So let's use only singing as the example. Again, without any other reference, if I asked you, hey, can you sing an A4 for me? And you were able to just sing it, we would say you have perfect pitch. So absolute pitch and perfect pitch. Absolute is the ability to identify by ear. Perfect pitch is the ability to sing without reference, any pitch. And then last definition we want to get on the table is relative pitch. relative pitch or good relative pitch, that's what I have through training. I do not have absolute pitch or perfect pitch. I was not born with those abilities, and you don't need to be in order to be a good singer or a good instrumentalist. What you do need is good relative pitch, and that's what we develop through training. So, what is relative pitch? Relative pitch is the ability to sing any given pitch given a reference, though. So, for example, if you give a person who has trained to have good relative pitch, relative because it's all in relation to a pitch that you're providing for them, they'll be able to find that other pitch through their interval training and their knowledge of music theory. So, example time. If you give me, or any other trained, singer or musician, if you give them a pitch, let's say you give them C4, and then you say, okay, sing me a G. We could sing C, G, and then test with the piano. That was G3. Or we could find another G, C, G, and again, test with the piano. And the way that a singer or instrumentalist is doing that is they're analyzing in their head, what's the distance between a C and a G? And for me, I know either a G is going to be what we call a perfect fourth lower than C, or a perfect fifth higher than C. And if you still have your virtual piano open and you walk through just the white keys, if you go C4, for example, C4, B3, A3, G3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's where we get the whole it's a fourth away thing from. And then same idea if you go in the opposite direction, C, D, E, F, G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's where we got the whole fifth idea. So that's the first step for someone who has trained their relative pitch, is identifying what's the distance between those two pitches that I'm being asked to analyze. The first pitch, C4, was given to me. That's my reference pitch. And then I'm thinking, okay, how far away from that reference pitch is the pitch the person's asking me to sing? And however far away it is, we identify that with the interval. Interval is just distance between two pitches. So in this case, it was either a perfect fourth lower or a perfect fifth higher. Okay. How to know if you have perfect pitch? So this is really interesting. I had a student, she was, I believe, in her 80s, and I think that she had perfect pitch and has had perfect pitch her whole life, and she didn't know it. Um, the reason I think this is because we were in a voice lesson. She hadn't taken a voice lesson before, and I we were working on a song. She started singing the song, and I checked her pitch, and I was like, "Oh, interesting. You were singing in tune. You were singing in the correct key." And I didn't give her any reference. I just asked her to sing it. But she sang it in the original key, and when I pointed that out to her, she was like, "Oh yeah, well that's what the song sounds like." And then she was able to do that for more than one song. So it's very interesting to me. I thought this singer might have perfect pitch, and she's, made it through a good portion of her life and just never knew it. Super interesting. So, how to know if you have perfect pitch? Um, can you accurately sing the starting pitch of songs that you know? So, if I asked you, for example, if you know the song Hey Jude, can you think about what that song, what the original track sounds like? And then what is the pitch that you sing? If you sing, because I know this one, Hey Jude starts on a C4. So if when you think Hey Jude, you are always singing Hey Jude, you are singing that accurately. So then the question becomes, are you singing accurately the correct starting pitch of any song that you're familiar with. That could be a sign that you have perfect pitch and didn't know it. You don't need to know what the pitch letter names are in order for you to have this ability. Basically, you would need to learn the pitch letter names and all of that to develop absolute pitch, the ability to identify pitch letter names by ear. You would have to learn music theory, and um, that's why it's possible for someone to have this innate ability that they're born with and not know it simply because they don't have the vocabulary. They haven't learned music theory in order to identify pitches. So, um, so is that a foolproof test of whether you can sing any song in tune without a reference? It might not be foolproof, but that would be a pretty good start because I can tell you for sure I can't do that. If you asked me to sing Hey Jude in the original key, maybe I could get close, but that information is just not stored in my brain. Pink Pearl was asking, "Oh, this is a great question. Why some trainers will close one ear?" So that's such a good question. It's to be able to hear yourself better. So, you might see, for example, the classic would be like a singer in the studio or on stage, and let's say they don't have headphones on. Let's say they're closing one ear. Okay, if you try this right now, so just, be talking or singing, whatever you wanna do, just to try this out, and then close one ear and notice how now you can hear yourself kind of inside your head. So it comes in handy when you're in an environment where you can't really hear yourself well in the room. So an example of that would be you're on a really noisy stage and there's a loud drummer and guitars and bass, all blaring. If you sing aloud and you can't hear what you're singing, then you'll close your ear just to make sure, okay, I'm singing what I think I'm singing. Um, and yes, that's the whole purpose of that is ensuring that you're singing the correct pitch. Because we as singers, we rely on sensation and sound, and if you're missing that sound component, that's very tricky. So, also a good reminder, Pink Pearl, whenever you're singing live to have a good monitoring situation so that you can hear yourself. Even if it's something casual like karaoke, you wanna be able to hear yourself as you're singing, and if you can't, you can do that thing of closing your ear every now and then. Um, okay, so next question we wanna answer, is it important to have perfect pitch? It's not as important as you think. Again, because the vast majority of even professional singers and instrumentalists do not have perfect pitch. It's something you're born with. Um, Out of the professional musician population, let's say, more of that population does have perfect pitch than the general population. So, some numbers that you'll see thrown around are within the general population, about 1 to 5 in 10,000 people have perfect pitch. Um, Within the professional musician community or just musician community, it might be closer to something like 100 out of those 10,000 have perfect pitch. This is anecdotal, but I sing in a choir in Los Angeles, and I'm thinking about the size of that choir. It's maybe, let's say, about 30 singers, and I can think about 2 to 3 of them do have perfect pitch. Um, but these are all professional working singers, and it's still a very, very small fraction, that actually have perfect pitch. So it is pretty rare. Um, where it comes in handy is you can be a pitch reference for people. So let's say you don't have a keyboard or piano or phone handy to give you a pitch. you could ask that person, whoever they are, you could say, "Hey, Steve, can you sing us an A? Because A is our, the key that we're in for this song." That's pretty cool. Um, that person also will have a really good internal kind of compass for when they're reading a piece of music. It will feel right for them if they're singing or playing it in tune. It'll feel wrong for them if they're not. So, a person with perfect or absolute pitch is going to be able to learn relative pitch. Remember, that's the relationship between pitches. Um, they're going to be able to learn it pretty quick because it's just a matter of adding a vocabulary to something that they already know. It's like they already have a frame of reference for it. Um, you could think about this as kind of like if you had never seen colors and you were being taught both what the color looks like and what it's called versus someone with perfect pitch, again, something that they're born with, they've already seen all the colors, they just don't know what to call them. Um, Not a perfect analogy, but I think that's a pretty good one, when you think about the step ahead you might have if you're learning an instrument or learning to sing and you have perfect pitch. Um, but it can also be a hindrance. So sometimes, for example, you sing a song or play a song in a key different than the one it was written in or different than the original. So let's say we're looking at a piece of music. This is actually a really common thing. Let's say we're reading a piece of music and the music is in the key of C. Many times, the choir director will choose to not have the choir perform it in the key of C. They'll say, let's do this in the key of B, which is very, very close. It's just a half step away. Or let's do this in the key of C sharp. Again, very close, just a half step higher. Um, that's a very, very common thing. They could have many reasons for changing the key, but let's say you have perfect pitch and you know what it's supposed to sound like and feel like in the key of C, and now you have to read it and sing it and play it in the key of B or C sharp. That's going to be tricky if you haven't already developed good relative pitch and know how to make your way without really relying on perfect pitch. So my point is everyone needs to develop good relative pitch regardless of who you are. So could it be a step up? Yeah, sure. Do you need it? Absolutely not. Um, can you develop perfect pitch? Most people would say no, you can't develop perfect pitch. You might be able to come close by memorizing specific pitches if that's important to you and if you think that that would benefit you in your singing or instrumental journey. I support it. um, it's not something that I've taken the time or initiative to do because it's not important to me or my goals. Um, if I was, let's say, an a cappella singer who was often singing without a pitch reference, maybe that's something that I would take the time to do. But for my life, I'm I'm almost always singing with some sort of pitch reference. And what do I mean by that? Either I'm singing with an instrument or a track or a band, or I'm able to get my starting pitch from either an instrument or a phone. Um, in fact, I won't be this year, but in many years past, I sing with this Christmas caroling company. Super fun. We get dressed up in these, Victorian costumes. And all of our singing is a cappella, meaning we don't have any instruments or tracks that we're singing along to. And we just get our pitches from either a pitch pipe, kind of like a whistle. Someone will whoo, blow whatever our starting pitch is, or some of us are a little bit more, high tech and we're reading our music off of an iPad in a folder, and we can play the pitch from the iPad. And again, it's quiet. We just play that starting pitch or whatever key we're in, and then we're good to go. So, I have not yet run into a situation in my life where I needed to be able to pull a pitch out of thin air. It's just not expected of people because it is such a rare thing to have. Um, so you will see if you go onto YouTube, well, you're already on YouTube, but if you are on YouTube and look up, perfect pitch training or memorize a certain pitch, you'll probably find videos where they just play the same pitch over and over again, or they play music in that key. Um, Probably the most natural way to go about it, if it's something that interests you, would be memorizing the starting pitch of a song you're really, really familiar with. And again, it's not just memorizing the melody of the song, it's memorizing the actual starting pitch. So the one that I gave for Hey Jude was the starting pitch was a C4. Hey Jude. And again, you don't really care about the rest of the song. You're just memorizing, hey, and knowing that that is C4. Um, so if you want to, that's how I would go about it. This is kind of any fellow teachers watching. This is a teaching principle that we always want to take something that the student knows, and then add something new to it. So this is the same idea of you're taking something that you already know, this song, and then you're adding something new to it. That's just the identification of that specific pitch. Okay, so now we've talked about what the difference is between perfect pitch, absolute pitch, relative pitch, intonation, um, the importance of it, the rareness of it, and let's talk now about how to develop great relative pitch. Zehave was asking, how do singers like Beyonce or Gaga or Jesse Norman trained to find the first pitch? Great question. So, um, there's a couple ways. If they are performing with a track, let's say a band or a karaoke track, if there's instruments involved, they're getting their pitch from those instruments. Um, if they're starting a song, let's say without any track. So let's say they're singing the national anthem at the Super Bowl. Then typically how they're going to get their first pitch, if they're a cappella, if there's no instrumentation, is it'll be played in their earpiece. Um, Singers at that level, you can almost guarantee they're wearing an in ear monitor. So instead of wearing headphones like this, they're wearing basically an AirPod or typically it's not going to be wireless like an AirPod, but they have an in-ear monitor. This is how they're getting starting pitches. They'll even have more cues given to them. So they might also have a click, or they might this is what serves as their monitor. Instead of relying on stage monitors or speakers on the stage, they have it right in their ear. That way they can adjust what mix they want to hear that's going to be the most helpful for them. Um, and that would be how they would get that starting pitch. So let's say they're singing the national anthem. Before they start to sing, they might hear do, and then they would sing, oh, say. Now, I actually don't know about those singers that you mentioned, if any of them have perfect pitch, um, or absolute pitch. If they did, then they wouldn't even need that reference. But again, when you're singing at a very high level like that, you can almost guarantee they're going to have an in ear monitor, and the production team is not taking any chances. They're going to give that singer everything that they need to be successful. Hope that all made sense. But you can look up, um, if you happen to be on TikTok, there's a creator on there. I think his name is Dre Demura, if I'm remembering that correctly, and I'll look up his name. He does a lot of instructional videos on in-ear monitors and how these, like, really big professional tours are run. Let me see if I can find him real quick. Yeah, okay. I did remember his name. I'll just link the website, and then there you go. So you can go to his TikTok and, learn a little bit more there. Jennifer, I don't know if you've already answered this, but how do you train to improve relative pitch? That is exactly what we're talking about now. So, perfect pitch and absolute pitch is somewhat behind us. So, we're talking about how to develop great relative pitch. The short answer, but I'll go into it. The short answer is interval training and music theory. We need both of those components because we need to understand not only what the distance between any two pitches sounds like, but we need to know what it's called, how to identify it just as a shorthand. And I know some folks are like not not jazzed about learning music theory. Um, However, think of it as a shorthand to make your life easier. Um, the other thing worth noting, Jennifer, is you can have a great sense of pitch without knowing music theory. You can. Um, that again, I would say is something that someone is more or less either born with or it's something that comes rather easily to them. So if the question is how do you train this, I'm going to assume it's something that doesn't come extremely easily. Um, so first, this might be first. I'll say it's super important, but it might not be the first thing you learn. Is learning how to identify what we'd call the tonic or the home base of the key that you're in. So take this example. Um, if we're listening to a piece of music, uh, let's say we're listening to Hey Jude. That's been my example today. So let's say we're listening to Hey Jude. Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better. Okay, any of us can listen to that song and be able to sing the melody. Um, right? We can just by rote, we can listen and through repetition, we can learn how it goes. Um, But a person with good relative pitch would be able to tell you, "Hey, Jude," that the tonic, the home base of that melody and of that song is not that starting note. Hey, it's actually this note right here. And I'm going to play this is an exercise I remember doing in like music theory 1 or 2. And the professor played just a chord progression for us, and he asked us to identify the pitch. Sorry, the tonic. And I just had no idea. I was so lost. Other kids in the class were like, "Oh yeah, easy peasy," and I was like, "What are they listening for?" Okay, so what you're listening for is what single pitch feels like home base. Like that's what the song should end on. I'm gonna play a few chords for you. These are the chords for Hey Jude. This one's actually a pretty good example because it returns to that tonic quite a lot. So if you're looking at the chords here, we have F, C, C7, back to F, B flat, back to F, C, C7, and it ends on F. So the question you're asking yourself is, okay, what pitch or what chord would make this feel complete? Does it sound complete if I end this on does it sound complete if I go No, it doesn't sound complete. It sounds like I'm leaving you hanging. It only sounds finished when I return to that F chord. So that's a crucial skill for you to identify that's my tonic or my home base, because then that tells me um that's also the key that I'm in. So if you can do that by ear, bum, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, then you've got your scale. And now, as you're analyzing and learning this melody, hey Jude, now you know, okay, if this is my tonic, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hey Jude. Now you know you're going 5, 3, 3, 5, 6, 2, 2, 3, 4, 1. Or that feels really unnatural to me because I'm a solfege person. So my system for interval training is called solfege. So mi so la re mi fa do ti so la so fa mi. And using that system, I can then decode what the pitches are so that I could play it or I could write it down. Um, so So someone's asking, I was not born with that kind of voice, but I love to sing. But whenever I hear my voice, I'm like, ew. So how to find my first pitch? Um, let's circle back to that. I want to talk just a little bit more on developing good relative pitch. Um, okay, so being able to identify the tonic or home base, we need that. Um, Second, we need to have or develop a good pitch memory. So we just need the ability to, if someone sings or plays a melody for us, let's say they go da da dum, da da dum, da da dum. You might recognize that. Um, can you hold that in your head? Even if you can't identify the pitches, the intervals, okay, you don't need that. Can you just hold that in your head and then can you reproduce it? Da da dum, da da dum, da da dum. And maybe you're already starting to analyze the first line and the third line were the same. The second line, da da da, started the same, but the ending pitch was just a little bit different. Um, so having a good pitch memory to sing back or at least just hold in your head something that you've just heard. Um, that's that's how we learn, but it'll just go quicker if you're in the habit of yeah, of uh, having an accurate pitch memory. Um, and then next step would be to what I kind of demonstrated a little bit here was to decode that memory you've just held in your head using some sort of system. So could be scale degrees, 875, 876, or it could be do ti sol, do ti la. I'm partial to solfege because it makes sense to my brain, and that's how I learned sight reading and ear training. But other people are more used to scale degrees. So you're going to see one or the other. It you know, even if you're a solfege person, you'll probably have to learn scale degrees anyways. So those are just numbers within the scale. Um, so then you're identifying the intervals that you just heard using that system, whether it's scale degrees or solfege. And then the last step would be identifying, getting a reference for just one pitch. That's all you need. Just one pitch, and then being able to fill in the blanks. So, this is the information you have. If you're analyzing, let's say again, Hey Jude. Okay. All you would need to tell someone who's trained via interval training, music theory, all you need to tell them is, okay, your first pitch is a C4. Then that person would be able to go, okay, melody, I've already determined that's my tonic. So if I know that this is a C, C, bum, what's that interval? Ba, ba. I know that's a descending perfect fifth, and I know a descending perfect fifth from C is going to be an F. So then I know, okay, we're in the key of F, F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. And then I can use that pitch memory. Da, 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 da. C, A, C, D, G. Do you need to be able to go through all of those steps to just learn a song? No, no, you don't. Like I said before, you can just learn by rote. You can learn by lots and lots of repetition. But these are typically the steps that you learn to follow when, say, you're going to school for music like I did. You would be in something called, aural skills or practical musicianship. That's what it was called at my university. And usually you're learning these things separately. You're learning music theory, which is everything on paper. So that's where you're learning pitch names, types of scales, types of chords, all that good stuff. So that's one class. And then in another class, that's where you're learning the ear stuff. That's where you're learning, what is it if I go da, 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 da? What is that interval? So the very, very first step, in fact, sorry, I just switched keys on you. Here you go. Proof that I don't have perfect pitch. Hey Jude. So that first interval right there, that's what we call a descending minor third. And that was the very, very first interval that I learned. I remember we learned it using rain, rain, go away. And then we learned, other songs that have that interval. But that's usually where you start with interval ear training is, again, you're using that teaching principle of something which is the song, and you're adding on something that you didn't know. In this case, it's the name of that interval or the name of the distance between those two pitches. So, this is something that we have talked about and worked on here in other live lessons. So, if you haven't seen those, I would say go to the channel and search ear training, intonation, intervals, search for anything like that. And you'll find more live lessons that are a little bit more like walking you through. The site that I use or have used, let me see if I can find it quickly for you. Okay, this is the interval song chart generator from Earmaster. And by the way, this is not an advertisement for Earmaster. I haven't even used it, but I do know that it's been around for a while, and if you're looking for software, apps, books, to learn interval ear training and music theory, that is one worth considering. Just again, because I know it's well established. I haven't used it myself, um, but this link that I provided is not something you have to pay for, totally free. And what it is, so it says a common way to recognize intervals is to associate them with reference songs that you know well. For example, the song Amazing Grace, Amaze, begins with a perfect fourth. So when you hear that interval, da, da, that sounds like the beginning of Amazing Grace, you can quickly conclude that it's a perfect fourth. So that is the process that anyone learning this is going to follow. Um, generally. Of course, I'm speaking from my own experience and what's common here, especially in the US. But you'll see here, there's lots of different examples. You probably won't be familiar with every single one, but all you need is one. So you can see the interval name, ascending, so that's going up, and descending, going down. For example, this interval right here is a minor second. And you have many options for an ascending minor second. The Jaws theme, the Pink Panther theme, Isn't She Lovely? Isn't she lovely? But you're only focused on the isn't. And then you also have the descending, da da, joy to the world, or da na 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 na. That was the Beethoven example at the top. Again, all you need is one for each. So you could fill out this chart if you took the time to do that. Then you would scroll, scroll, scroll. And at the very bottom, I think the button will be orange, create song list. And then that will take you to a new page that's just the songs that you chose. And you can save it as a PDF. You could print it out if you wanted to. Um, I have as well. I have another link that I wanted to share with you, and then we will get just to Q&A. So if you have questions, and I will go back to that one question that I didn't quite answer yet. Here you go. Okay, so that is just a collection of resources that I put together on my website. So if you click that very last link, you'll see. Oh, do I need to paste it again or is that okay? I think it's okay. You can let me know if it works. My favorite free resources for beginning singers. So we've got some warm ups here on YouTube for you, and then ear training. That's the tab I wanted you to look at. So tuner.ninja, the Chet app, Earpeggio, musictheory.net. If you do want to learn music theory, that's a wonderful and free place to start. Um, if you're interested in this and want more structure, again, I would say I would look into a book or an app or software that will take you through this process kind of from the ground up. Um, so I don't because I like to recommend things that are free. I haven't really dove into paid things like this. Um, However, if you find one that's great and want to share, please do let me know. Because I'd love to be able to recommend stuff that works. But anyways, if I were you and I wanted to do this for free, I would start at musictheory.net. And then I would be looking for free ear training apps. So maybe like the Chet app or Earpeggio to supplement. And if you like it, and if you're like, yeah, I can see the value in this, then you could maybe consider, paying for something that is a little bit more guidance. Okay. Um, so Mark is helping out. Well, when I speak and sing, my friends told me I sing with the help of my nose. When I try to sing without my nose, I feel uncomfortable. Um, so this is a good thing to talk about. Nasality is not a bad thing. The little quick thing that you'll see sometimes, this is not my favorite tool, but you'll see sometimes voice teachers saying, "Oh, if you sing nasally, plug your nose," and then it'll train you to not sing nasally. So if you're going, and you plug your nose and the sound disappears, you have to find another way to make that noise. And then you can unplug your nose and you'll notice my sound was way, way less nasalized. That only works though if you are truly closing or constricting in a way that you have true nasal resonance. Um, it's possible to have a nasal sounding tone without it being true nasality. So, for example, I could sing and yes, the sound changes, but it doesn't totally disappear like it did before. So, my advice to you, if you're experiencing that nasal tone and um, the pinching your nose thing didn't work, my advice to you is gonna be a little bit more involved, and I can best help you with that by sending you to another video that we did. Let me find it. What I'm looking for is fixing common issues with tone. Alright, here you go. So that is one of the issues that I address there in that live lesson is nasality. So please check that out. It'll be a much more complete answer than I can give you right now, complete with exercises and lots of good stuff. Esther is asking, how can I stay on pitch as an alto? So my question for you is, in what context are you singing? Are you singing in a choir? Are you singing just on your own? Um, I would also point you to another video actually, Esther, because sorry if this makes noise, because last week our our whole thing was, am I singing in tune? That was a how to know if you're singing in tune. So Esther, that is for you. Um, whatever issue that you're having, hopefully that would be a good start for you. I'm completely new to ear training, so this question may not be applicable to this video. Apologies if it isn't. All good. All questions are welcome. What's the difference between pitch and key? Okay, great question. So, pitch, we talked about at the very beginning, is just the highness or lowness of a note. Key, this is why it's confusing because if I tell you this key on the piano, this I'm hitting C. I'm hitting the C key on the piano. But that's referring specifically to like the piece of the piano that I'm hitting, that key. So I'm hitting this key, this key, this key. Typically when we talk about key in a musical context, we are talking about what is home base for this song. So our example from before was Hey Jude, and I think I might have mentioned it's in the key of F. So this is the F key on the piano. But what it means when I say we're in the key of F, that means F serves as home base or the tonic for that song. It means that melody is pretty much built on the F major scale if I'm in the key of F major, for example. Um, so a key normally, a key tells us what's home base. That's going to be a specific pitch. And what scale is the melody built on? The scale will also determine the chords that belong in that melody. So if we went back to Hey Jude, Um, if you look this up on Ultimate Guitar, you would see it says cap capo 3rd fret key of D. It's not actually in the key of D when you put the capo on the 3rd fret, um, because D, capo, 1, 2, 3, that puts you in the key of F. Okay, so that's me being nitpicky. But if I'm playing on piano, my first chord is an F, and then a C7, back to F, B flat, F, C7, F. Okay, all of those chords are also in the key of F. My melody is also built on the F major scale. So I hope I answered that. I'm trying to rack my brain to see, is there another video maybe where I address that? Um, Mark is asking, are there any specific exercises or songs to practice with to work on and improve relative pitch? Um, Mark, I think where I would start with just full scales. And then from there, I would do jumping around exercises. So, um, obviously, the scale we use the most, especially in vocal warm-ups, is the major scale, ba 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 ba. But you could also start to learn the minor scale, the natural minor scale, da 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 da. And there's other types of minor scales as well, melodic minor, harmonic minor. Um, so that would be really, really good to do and then start to jump around. So the easiest one to start with would be like that bungee exercise we've done before, where instead of just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you're going 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, and so on. That way you're starting to establish at least the intervals from the tonic or from the home bass. Um, when I was in college, what we would do then would be a bungee from each subsequent scale degree. So that was the one we started with, would be the do bungee. Do, re, do, mi, do, fa, do, so. Okay. But then we would do a re bungee. Re, mi, re, fa, re, sol, re, la. And then we would do a mi bungee. Mi, fa, mi, sol, mi, la, mi, ti. Um, so that would be another good thing to do. If you have a keyboard handy, Mark, I can't remember if you do. Um, but if you have a keyboard handy or just a virtual keyboard, probably the easiest thing to do would be start in the key of C, all white keys. You don't need to know any key signatures in order to do that. And again, you would start just walking up and down, key of C. Then start jumping C, D, C, E, C, F, C, G until you get to the next C. And then come down as well. And then, still staying in the key of C, you can then make your starting pitch D. And then coming down as well, and then make your starting pitch E. That way you're eventually working through, so you're hitting every single interval that could be sung within that key. Again, bungees. That's what we call that, because it's like you're bloop, bloop, bloop. Yeah, it is fun and very, very good ear training for sure. But I mentioned, make sure that you have some sort of pitch reference, because you need something keeping you in check. We don't just want to do this without a reference and hope for the best. No, we need yeah, we need a reference. Okay. And bagpipes only have 9 notes. All right. That's okay. Virtual keyboard it is for you, or tuner. But yeah, I think virtual keyboard is great, just because it's so clear, laid out for you visually, That's why so many kids start with piano as their first instrument instead of something, you know, I know it seems easier to like pick up the guitar because it's portable. But if your main goal is to improve your sense of pitch, um, and learn music theory, I really think you can't do better than piano because it's just so clear. Um, Guitar is great for accompanying yourself. I think you can become an adequate guitarist uh, sooner than you can become an adequate piano player. But, anyways, all right, my friends, I will see you next week. Thank you for being here. By the way, I wrote an article. So if you missed part of this lesson and you were like, I just want kind of a recap, then I wrote this article on the difference between perfect pitch and relative pitch. So you could read that just as a refresher if anything was unclear. All right. I will see ya. See you next week. Who knows what we'll talk about then? I think it's vocal ranges. If you need to know it, ah, it's gonna be fun. All right, have a good rest of your week. See ya.